Near mint condition, the home of collected editions.
That cover's so awesome.
Absolute format is the best way to own this store. Time to empty those wallets and fill those shelves. How's it going, all you minties? Uncanny Omar here from Near Mint Condition, the home of collected editions, and join me today for your advanced look at the Complete Kabuki 30th Anniversary Edition. This is a big book from Dark Horse Comics, so let's go ahead and get started. Alright, first thing we want to do is get this out of this cardboard box that is neatly packed in here. So, it's just a cardboard, that's it, and it is wrapped in plastic, which we'll get it out of its plastic right now. Alright, there we go. Now, the very first thing I want to do is give a big thank you to the folks at Dark Horse for sending us an advance copy of this big collection. And this Complete Kabuki 30th Anniversary Edition is due out in the direct market and book market on February 18th. But wanted to go ahead and do an overview of it and talk about, of course, the story and show off the artwork in here in case people are not familiar with this particular book. And the next thing I want to do is compare it to the size of an omnibus. So here it is, compared to the size of a Marvel omnibus. Just how much bigger this is. There you go. It is a big book. It is as tall as other library editions. However, it is also longer than other library editions. I wanted to compare it to the size of a trade paperback right here. Just how much bigger it is. So it really is the size of the monster-sized Hellboy or the Colossal Conan books or the Harrow County or Big Damn Sin City, just to kind of give you an idea. So this one does retail for $149.99. So we're going to crack it open, look at the artwork in here, talk about the stories found in here, and of course look at all the extras. Alright, let's get this big book opened. Here are your end sheets. And the title page right here with the watercolors by David Mack. And David Mack, of course, creating Kabuki. And writer-artist David Mack. You have letters over here like Steve Stegelin, Joe Martin, and David Mack. But there's a lot of other people that work on this book. Here is the dedication to David Mack's mom, who, if you look at his introduction, he talks about how he started working on the book while his mom was still around, and she passed away while he was in his second year working on the book, and how the book started as this Northern Kentucky, that's right, Kentucky represent, paper, and it became a comic book. So here is what's collected in the book. It is broken down by story arcs that have been previously collected in trade paperbacks and also in library editions. You have Circle of Blood, Dreams, Skin Deep, Metamorphosis, Alchemy, and then Lost in Translation, and Mask of No comes before Lost in Translation. Lost in Translation is when it was at Marvel Comics. There's also the prologue, Fear the Reaper, which is how all of this got started when it was printed at Caliber Press. So this has had a long journey of being printed at Caliber Press, then over at Image for a while, then he self-published, and then he went over to Marvel during their Icon era, which is where Brian Michael Bendis published his books, and now Dark Horse owns the rights, and they've been publishing it for a while. They've done omnibus editions, and they've done the library editions, and now they have this big Complete Kabuki 30th Anniversary Edition, and I showed the size a little bit earlier, just how big it is, and oh my goodness, the size of this is humongous. So this book has 1,312 pages, and it retails for $149.99. Now, the story of Kabuki is a very basic story at first, but it's multi-layered because there's so much more to Kabuki than what we're presented here in the first story arc. We are introduced to the No, and of course, all of this taking, the names from a lot of the Japanese lore, and like the Kabuki place, right, that they have, and the No mask place that they wear, and all these lady assassins wear the No mask. So this is the underground Japanese group known as the No. They're assassins for hire, and we're gonna talk about each one of them here in a little bit, or just kind of give you a glimpse as to maybe a little bit of their personalities. But this is all taking place in this futuristic world, and all of it set in Japan. For the most part. And what we find out is that in this world that Kabuki lives in, it is ran by several organizations. And the No is kind of like the group of people that make sure that there's a perfect balance within the Japanese government and the underground world. And if anybody needs to learn a lesson, they will send out an assassin to go and get them. And that's what this is. The No is ruled by this general. He's just known as the General, who is a World War II Japanese military soldier, and a very successful one. And he's the one that ends up ruling over the No. And he has these 8 assassins. One of them, the primary one, is Kabuki. Her name is Ukiko. And she does have a mysterious past that the more you read, the more you get to find out about her past and her father and her grandfather. Now, the general is not just Akiko's boss, but also happens to be her caretaker, her father, if you will. Her mother died at childbirth, and there's a whole complications, a whole horrible things that happened to her because her mother was part of this group of women that were just there to kind of calm the soldiers down. And you find out more and more about the past through these stories. Now, if you're familiar with David Mack's artwork, if you came here from like his work on Daredevil or Echo, introducing the character of Echo, you know he has that painted art style that you probably saw in the front here, that beautiful watercolors mixed with like inks and paintbrushes and photographs. That will be here. The beginning is just basically setting up the plot. Now what happens is that there's this guy named Ryuichi Kai who wants to be in charge of everything in Japan. He also happens to be another war veteran, and he does have relations to the general, and also, as you find out, Kabuki. And what ends up happening is he ends up manipulating her to go and kill some people. And then there's another person. So he poses as this character known as Oni for the group of the No. So you have the general, and then you have Oni, and you have Dove. And Dove tells Kabuki the real truth, what's going on, who the general really is, who Ryuichi Kai is. And she goes on a rampage and goes on a path of revenge when she finds out the truth about everything, including her past, her mother's past, and who Ryuichi Kai is. Now, the whole story, all of this beginning is done in sequential formats. There's a lot of Frank Miller in here too from news broadcasts, because not only is she an assassin, but the agents of the No are also, I want to say almost like reality TV stars, but it's a real thing. It's like they're manipulating the media. And again, trying to keep that perfect balance for Japan. Now, that's the premise of the story. Something happens at the end of the first story arc that you're led to believe, oh, this is it, it's over. But it continues. And when it continues, the book becomes something completely different, right? And I'm going to talk a little bit about that whenever we start getting some color in here. Okay, because the book I'm talking about now is Dreams. And Dreams is different than that of what we just read, right? First of all, it's in color. And all this is a conversation between the character of Akiko and her mother, who is dead, as I mentioned early on. Now we have painted artwork. Now we have watercolors. Now we have just actual colors on the finished inks. And it looks like a different book. And it does feel like a different book. But this entire dream sequence is nothing more than just a conversation or getting to know her mother. I don't want to say what happens at the end of book 1, but it becomes this dreamlike type of story. Hence the title, Dreams. And then we get a little bit more of the stories as we continue with Mask. Mask is immediately following up the dream sequence, but really it's a follow-up to the first story, to the Circle of Blood, because, and now we're in Skin Deep, but let's actually go back to Mask for a little bit. Mask is about how the No organization is left in shambles because of everything that happened in the first story arc, and now they want to go and get Kabuki. They know that she might be out there somewhere, and they send out a group of No assassins to go looking for her, including Scarab. Now, Scarab is like your secondary character. She's the one that you get to read about a lot through here, because it's not just a story of Akiko, but also Scarab. And her name is Keiko. And yeah, to a lot of people that have read this, she's considered as the second character. And she is named after the Scarab beetle. Her outfit has all these spikes, and each one of them, of course, wearing the No mask. And hidden underneath the No mask is their true faces. So it seems like it goes back through this surreal type of story that's going on internally, about a character getting to know herself and who she really is, and then the external story that's taken place. Now, in the story of Skin Deep, we find out that Kabuki she woke up in this locked up room. So it turns out that she is now a patient of this organization known as Control. And Control is trying to get all the information out of her. And because they know that there's ties between the No and the Japanese government and all those groups who are now losing, like, they don't hold the power anymore. So they're trying to figure out exactly what she knows and what she's done. And of course, how they can take over the No. And then the next story arc in here is the Metamorphosis. And this is when you put together that, we talked about dreams, we talked a little bit about Skin Deep, that even though Kabuki is a story about a futuristic badass assassin group of ladies, it's really a series about transformation. And I'm not just talking about the transformation with the character, finding out who she is, finding out who she wants to be, not really letting this mask identify who she is, but the transformation within the artwork here, and the transformation within the storyteller. David Mack, as I mentioned, lost his mother, so in that story arc, Dreams, is where you're going to see that it's like he's taken a lot of that pain and suffering. And for anybody that's ever lost anyone, you know how much of that you've got in you, in that, what did Rocky call it? That basement part of your belly, right? Like, you just need to let it out. And I believe that's exactly what David Mack did throughout the series. Instead of focusing on the assassination part of the story or a revenge plot, it becomes a beautiful kind of love letter to what it means to be a human being. And I think no other comic besides this, but Alchemy does a really good job, though, of telling what a transformation is within yourself. Like, you're going through different periods. He was 20 years old when he started the series. And the series moved from Caliber Press, a small publishing company, which I know I've talked about in the past. I actually went there a long time ago with a friend of mine's sister. She was dating one of the letterers, and I got to meet David Mack and Quentin Hoover and a couple of other guys that I wish I could remember. And Quentin Hoover went on to draw Magic cards, and sadly we lost him a few years back. But Brian Michael Bendis started over there, and it's just, that's how they became friends, and that's how he ended up getting the job over there with Marvel and creating Echo, one of the most popular characters at Marvel Comics. But this is when you start thinking, oh my gosh, this is more than just an assassination story. This is a story about Akiko trying to find her place in life and trying to escape what her past is when she finds out who she truly is and what happened to her mother. And it becomes such a surreal piece of art that David Mack just takes sequential art and throws it out the window, and then just kind of does his own thing, mixing again watercolors and paintbrush and inks and pencils and photographs and magazine clippings. It's just insanity what this becomes. And I do want to talk just a little bit more about what happens in these stories, though, because while she is with Control, the Control Court. She does meet this girl named Alchemy who holds a past, and that past might have ties to the No. She does, lay out some things that perhaps at one time she was a member of the No, and now they're both being held by Control. And the beauty of the word Alchemy, the name Alchemy, it's like a play on the word alchemy, right? Which is one of the story arcs in here, which is all about, again, changing yourself and changing your character and trying to escape your past. And it's just done in such a beautiful way. And it's definitely one of those artsy books, right? Like, you don't expect it to be when you're reading the first black and white part. You're like, oh, cool, I can follow this. This is straight up manga and anime. I love stories like this. And then it just changes. It changes into something completely different, and it becomes more of an experience and less of a comic book. And I love when comics do that. And I think it's definitely not for everybody, right? Like artwork like this, if you think of like Dave McKean, or artists like Bill Sienkiewicz, it feels like a surreal, or I guess like a fever dream, if you will. But that's exactly what was intended, is for you to experience this journey along with the character of Akiko and becoming free from this world. And I keep calling her Akiko. It's Ukiko, sorry. And becoming free from her past. Now, I did talk a little bit about Scarab, but there are other No agents. And let's just go back here through the beginning. Scarab's your secondary character. Then there's another character named Tiger Lily, who her and Scarab kind of become really close. There's the Siamese right here, who are a group of assassins that always work together. These two characters right here. And there is the character of Ice. Ice is somebody that has like a backstory that we really don't get to know about. She's not the silent character, because that is really Snapdragon. She's the quiet character, and another one that's kind of a bit of a mystery. And then we have Buto right here. And I think it's her. Yeah, Buto's the one that her name translates to dance, which makes sense, right? If you're talking about Kabuki plays and you're talking about the No Mask, then it makes sense for somebody like Buto to be around, the dancer. So that kind of gives you an idea as to what this is. And the stories go with each other too. Like, you can read the story of Skin Deep right besides the Scarab Lost in Translation story and Metamorphosis. Like, they kind of go hand in hand. And I know at one time David Mack said that, you could read these in any type of way, because like I mentioned at the very beginning, there's a total of I think 7 volumes altogether in trade paperback, 4 omnis and 4 library editions. But I don't know. I don't agree with that. I think, where's the table of contents? I think that reading it from the beginning really helps you with that journey of how in the hell did we get from this, or I'm sorry, there we go, sequential art, to something like this. Now, other artists join him along the way, too. There's also Ricky May, who does a lot of the artwork in here. The Mask of No, that's the story arc that features the other No characters, and you get to find out more and more about them. And again, it's other people's artwork through here. I think at one time, like I mentioned, I think he was trying to get Brian Michael Bendis to draw some of the stuff in here. And he just didn't think he was up to par with what David Mack was doing. As a matter of fact, is Lost in Translation, which has the Ricky May's artwork. And again, it is a story featuring Scarab, which why a lot of us think that she is the second character in here you're following. Interesting thing about that is that when David Mack first started, he wasn't going to be the artist. He was just going to write the story. But he did like the first 8 pages, and then that turned into that 48-page one-shot, and then the rest is history. He continued doing it. And I thought that was really cool that he decided to do that. Now, as I mentioned, Kabuki, to me, always felt like an experience. There's not a lot of extras in here. We're going to look at the binding here in a second, but one of my favorite stories is not collected until the very back. So in the very back, you get a little bit of a bio on David Mack. You get this dedication right here to his mom, who died at a very young age. That's from 2016. You get some of the poetry and music and covers and some other art. But this is one of my favorite pieces right here. This has been collected before. I think in the trade paperbacks, it was at the end of volume 1. But this is just a conversation between David Mack and his father, done in this interesting art style, to say the least. But I love this. This shows you the relationship between his father and himself, and then finding out who he is. Again, it's all the story about finding your inner self and who you want to be, and escaping that past. All right, let's look at the binding, and then we'll talk about this art here. 1,312 pages. Not much of an eye, but it does lay over rather well. And there are some spread pages, but here we go. You can see how it kind of lays over. The paper stock in here is not as thick as the Hellboy paper stock, the monster size bust, or the paper stock they were using for Harrow County. And of course, no extras really in the back. It is just library editions 1 through 4, so no bonus content. So there is a little bit of bleed through happening. Now, the other thing I wanted to talk about is the question that I had, and of course a lot of you had if you had the library editions. One of the things that happened with the library editions, because of the dimensions of the book, is that the art seemed stretched out. So I do want to thank one of my viewers, Tom, who found some of the original, because I don't have the library editions. I never did get them. I had the omnibus editions, and I ended up giving them away because I thought I had the library editions. So there you go. There's my dumbass doing that. But one of the things that he noticed was that in the original library editions, there were some artwork that was resized. And it's still here, but I'll show you what exactly he meant. So, for example, it's a lot more noticeable when it's in color, I think. But this one definitely. So he showed me a picture. I don't know if it's his or he found it online. But that was the way it was stretched out in the library edition. I believe that is in volume 2, especially if it's this story. And in this version, they just put it as a splash page instead of stretching the art out for a spread page. Also, this page right here and the picture that he shared with me, so that was also stretched out for some reason, so it was resized. Now, the book itself looks like it's using the masters from the library editions, and I'll show you why. I'm going to pop up the art here on the right-hand side, the way that it looks in the trade paperback. So as you can see, the art here is just a little bit stretched out. So, if you've never read Kabuki, you wouldn't even notice that, honestly. But it just seems like it's just a little bit. And you can't really notice it in the black and white as much, but let's look at another example, and I'll pop up right there the way it looks in the original trade paperback. Like I said, it's just a little bit resized, and it's probably due to trying to get it to fit the paper here, because it's a little bit longer, of course, and taller. But I don't think it's like the library editions, because I think it's actually fixed a lot of those issues. And it's just a minor little thing that I noticed. But that is it. That is Kabuki. And that, as they say, is that. If you're interested in purchasing this big deluxe edition, don't forget to check out our sponsors.
If you're in Europe and you're interested in buying these books, definitely check out Walt's Comic Shop in Berlin, Germany. They have the cheapest pre-order prices, flat shipping rate of €12 for all EU countries, emails answered within 24 hours, waltscomicshop.com, and you can use the code nearmintcondition at checkout and get free shipping for all EU countries with your first order over €40. That's Walt's Comic Shop, your reliable source for omnis and premium collected editions in Europe. Ding!
cheapgraphicnovels.com, your online home for graphic novels and collected editions up to 50% off cover price. They have excellent shipping and prompt and helpful service. Check out their bargain deals for up to 90% off cover price. And don't forget that CGN also takes pre-orders. That way you don't miss out on the hottest releases. And they are currently running a special promotion for you Minties. If you're a first-time customer, after receiving your order confirmation email, reply back to that email and let them know Near Mint Condition sent you their way. They will then apply a free shipping promotional credit to your next order in the US. Cheap Graphic Novels, your source for the hottest books with the kind of deep discount, quality shipping, and customer service that will keep you coming back for more. And that was the content, the page count, and build of this book. Let me know in the comments down below below if you plan on picking it up, if you already have the library editions, if you're happy with your omnibus editions, or even if you have the original trade paperbacks or single issues. I would love to know all those comments down below. Don't forget to smash that like button, subscribe, and ring that bell for notifications. That's it, everybody. Stay healthy and safe out there. Much love.